Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here. Today I'm going to be talking about my new budget all-in-one diesel heater. This thing is an amazing value. It's one of the cheapest ones that I found. It works like a charm, and it's got a lot of really nice benefits that I'm going to kind of walk you through. I'm also going to show you how I mounted it to my rack system on my truck. I've got two ways to mount it, so I'm going to show you how I run it when I'm driving down the road and how I run it when I'm at camp. So if you're looking for like a budget diesel heater, if you are thinking of getting a diesel heater, this is a great option for you, and I think that the way that I've mounted it is pretty clever. I mean, you know, it's my own idea, so of course I think it's a good idea. But watch the video and let me know in the comments what you think, if you think this is a good idea or not. But again, let's dive into more on this diesel heater and the way that I've mounted it to my truck. All Things Overlanding is brought to you by some fantastic companies. You should definitely check out the description and click through their links to see all the awesome stuff they offer. Companies like Red Arc for all your overlanding power management needs. Last US Bag, tons of amazing quality overlanding bags. Rugged Bound Supply Company, rooftop tents, awnings, roof racks, and more. The More Expo 2022, get your tickets below. And Northology Overland, guided overlanding trips and a free overlanding magazine. All right, guys, so this is my diesel heater. At the time of recording this, you know, obviously prices change on Amazon quite a bit, so you're going to have to watch it, but it's ranged between about $105 and $120, which is significantly cheaper than most of the all-in-one diesel heaters that I've seen. The nice thing is it comes with everything. So it comes with the intake, it comes with the exhaust, it comes with a hose for getting the air out, it comes with the tank. It's all boxed up in one unit. It's really simple to take apart. There's actually just a series of screws, Phillips head screwdrivers, that hold the cover to this thing. I've had it all apart just to kind of check it out, but then they've got everything mounted in there, including the fuel tank, including the heater itself. But so again, you can see it's nice and simple, right? Like you don't want anything too crazy. So it's a very simple setup. It's obviously just like a diesel heater in a box with a controller on it and a fuel tank on top. The fuel tank is about 3/4 of a gallon, just so you know. It also does come with a remote that's really handy. So you could control it from your tent, that sort of thing. So when it's down here and I'm up in the tent, I can actually control it via the remote, which is super handy. Again, I've used this just a couple of times. It's been great so far, but that thing pumps out the heat, dries out my clothes inside of there, dries out the tent if it's raining or freezing raining, and it keeps the whole tent nice and warm. And I actually turn it down most nights. Usually sleeping like a t-shirt in my pants, and I usually keep it at about like 3/4 power, sometimes a little bit less depending on how cold it is outside. But I mean, I've used this thing in like teens, you know, 10 to 20 degree temps, and it's just amazing. I mean, it's literally, people say game changer all the time in the overlanding space about all gear. I try not to say that about almost everything because nothing's really a game changer. But seriously, this thing has changed the way that I camp because I'm a big winter camper. So if you're a big winter camper, I think for about $100, this is a steal of a deal, right? Now, one thing to think about is you do need a power source. So you either need like maybe like a deep cycle battery in your vehicle that you can reliably run the thing off of. I have run this thing off of a 1,000 watt-hour portable power generator, so one of those like battery pack kind of things, like a lithium battery pack. And I mean, it took less than, it only has like a 5-section gauge, so you can only see about 20% increments. It has taken less than one of those 20% chunks of that battery overnight. I was using it to run an oven and other things too, so it probably took, say, 10% overnight to run the thing. So it's very, very efficient, very, very efficient. So if you have an AGM battery or even a dual battery setup, it'd be really easy to power one of these things off of it. So one of the few modifications that I did make to the thing is I took a DC plug that I bought off Amazon, you know, with red and black wires basically. And then the other ends are these sort of eyelets that you basically screw onto the back of here. That was how both ends looked, these eyelet type plugs. So I basically just hardwired the positive and the negative to the positive and the negative of the DC plug, and then that way I can just plug this into my portable power generator. So I will put a link to this thing, the DC plug, in the description, but I think 10 or 15 bucks. It's pretty cheap, little add-on, but it is something that I'd probably recommend if you just want to be able to quickly plug it in and out of your cigarette lighter in your vehicle or your DC plug on your portable power generator if that's how you're going to power the thing. Another thing that I've heard about these things and that I've experienced myself is you can get some sort of fuel choke. So this has a small little vent in the top of the cap here, I'll show you, but it doesn't really work that well. So basically when you're running it, what the suggestion has been is I've seen two different ways. So you can see there's like a little filter on the inside and then a tiny little hole that's supposed to let the air out so that it basically doesn't, you know, create suction and keep the fuel in there. And so what I've seen, the two different ways that I've seen is you could drill a bigger hole down through here and put some sort of like a bolted tap into it with a lid so that you could essentially vent the cap. That's one option, but the only thing is then you're creating a hole in your cap, right? So you may have some leakage, you may have some diesel that sloshes out from time to time. So I've chosen not to do that. The other option is basically just to loosen the cap up when you go to bed. So when you want to start running it, you turn it on, you start running it, you loosen the cap up just so it's not sealed down tight, and then that will let the air vent for free. You don't have to pay any more money or buy anything else to do that. You just loosen up the cap. So that's kind of been my solution. So as you can see, I have got a bed rack. Mine is a high-rise bed rack. It's about the height of my cab. I've got my rooftop tent up on top, my rugged bound rooftop tent. I've got my OVS awning on the side here. Tons of stuff just mounted to it, right? But there is a little bit of an angle to my rack. Now, all racks are a little bit different, so this may or may not work for you, but my idea was basically I removed this red metal cover, right? I just pulled all the Phillips head screws off. And then what I did was there are these plates that came with my rack. I've also used one to mount my propane tank up here. But so they're just like flat plates, right? With a number of sort of like holes through them that you can use to then mount stuff to the rack. So there were these two holes in the case already. And those just so happened to line up with the holes in this plate, this mounting plate. So I put the bolt behind here, sticking out. I laid my plate down over top of it with the holes lined up with the bolts, and then I put a washer and a nut over top of that, and then I sawed off the end of the bolt. So it basically gives me a pretty flush mount way to get the plate for my rack attached to the diesel heater. So then what I did was I basically lined up the holes on the plate and ran these big long bolts through with these turnable knobs so that it can all be done by hand. But you can see basically what I do is I slide those bolts through those holes in my rack, and they are attached to the plate that's attached to the diesel heater. And then what I do is I just hand turn these knobs down until it's tight. And then that's basically what holds this whole thing to the rack. I made a wedge out of a piece of wood that would allow me to have it mount more flat so that it wasn't, because before when you mounted this flat, it was tilted back like this. So it was really angled up. So with the wedge, it makes it, mostly, I could probably cut it down a little bit, but mostly pretty level. And then the nice thing is, at least with this diesel heater in my truck, it actually rests right here on the bed the way that it's set up. So it's really stable. It's sitting on the bed, but then you still have access underneath here. I can run my exhaust out the side here, and I can run my intake out the side here, and I can run the thing right while it's strapped to the side of my truck. So I don't have to worry about it falling over when it's on the side of the truck or someone knocking it over or anything like that. It's actually attached to my truck. Now, when I am driving, I reverse this. So I pull this thing off, I take the wedge, and I turn it the other way inside of here to make it wedged so that it holds it straight on the inside of the bed rack. And then I bolt it out through here. So I put the hand turn knobs on the outside and I bolt it to the inside of the rack just to be safe, just so it doesn't fall off. Like I don't want it on the outside going down a trail or down the highway. So I put it inside the bed when I'm driving with it, and then when I'm ready to use it at camp, I just undo the knobs, reverse it, put it on the outside so that I can access it a little bit easier, and then bolt it right up, and I'm ready to go. Plus, my awning is right above it, so my awning helps protect it from weather. So if it's raining or snowing or anything like that, the diesel heater isn't on the ground, in the weather, in the mud, anything like that. It's actually up here, off the ground, and underneath of the awning. So now let me show you some more detail on how I attached the plate to the unit and how I made the wedge for it. All right, so you can see here, again, these were the holes like on the other side over there. These were where those holes were. I removed the red cover. I ran these bolts through here, put some washers on it and some nuts, and then cinched down this plate. So I mean, this thing is on there rock solid. It doesn't go anywhere. And then before I tightened these all the way down though, I put these other bolts through from the back with a washer so that then they would basically be sandwiched. So they just stay on here all the time, right? So then I tightened these down until it sandwiched these between the heater and the plate. And then again, all I do is when I go to put it on, and this is super just ugly and nasty. At first I was going to put holes through it and run these, but instead I just cut off the bolts. But basically I just cut notches in this piece of wood to make the wedge. And then you basically just put your washer on here, put your hand tighten knob, and then you just thread it down until it's tight on the rail, right? So that's it. But so, I mean, it takes me a minute to switch this thing from the inside to the outside of the truck and have it ready to run. Again, then I take my cable and I plug it into my portable power generator that I put in the back here underneath of the rooftop tent, so it's waterproof. Have my awning open generally, so then the heater itself is underneath of the awning as well, so it's waterproof. So it's a really pretty nice little system. And again, for about, I mean, I already had the power bank, so that wasn't a cost for me because I already had it. But so for a little over $100 to get this thing and to be able to sleep comfortably and have an entirely warm tent where I can change clothes or, you know, get up in the middle of the night and come back into a warm tent instead of having to hunker down into a sleeping bag with hot hands has been life-changing. So I really, really like this thing. All right, guys, so that was my diesel heater. Again, there will be links in the description to that. There will be links in the description to these bolts and nuts that I used, if that helps. I'll put links to the DC plug that I used to modify the cord for it. Any questions you guys have, post up in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Click that like button if it was helpful. Hopefully this gives you some ideas. Even if your rack is different, hopefully it gives you some ideas for how you could potentially mount one of these in a cool way where it's kind of off the ground, out of the weather, and super easy to take off, you know, when it's not winter. So again, I hope that was good information for you. If you're not already, make sure to click that subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. I do-it-yourself mods like this all the time. I'm a very budget-minded, like weekend warrior type overlander. I talk about overlanding stuff. I talk about mods. I do gear reviews, that kind of thing. So if you're into any of that stuff, it would definitely make sense to subscribe to the channel. Also, in the description below are links to Facebook, Instagram, and I have a podcast that comes out every week talking about overlanding stuff. So again, check all that stuff out as well. There's also a Patreon page and a newbie overlanders group on Facebook that's totally free to join, so you definitely want to check that out as well. But again, thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next time.